Nick Hayes. Welcome to Autonomy Quest. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. I'm very much looking forward to the next hour and a half.
Yeah, me too. All right. So let's just jump right into it, Nick. Um, I like to always ask people because I don't always get to know everybody so, on a personal level, but I want to know what was it that brought you to autonomy? Like, where did you hear about it? What was your life like that drove you to enrolling? And, let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great place to start because as I was sort of getting ready for this call tonight, I thought I would write down a little chronology because I'm actually a season 5 graduate, and I know that the current autonomy season is season 12. So that was quite a number of moons ago that I went through this whole process. So I wrote down a little chronology of the last 3 years, and so it's fresh in my mind. But I was for me, it all started when lockdowns began, and that was a very unexpected, um, unprecedented event to be living through, and it was very strange. And around that time, I started asking a lot of questions because who wouldn't, right? There's a lot of strange things going on, very impactful in the lives of everyone we know and all our loved ones, and strange explanations were given. And so I thought, I want to understand why this is happening. How dangerous is it? How much risk is there facing me and my family and my wife? And I was working at the time, and I was having to continue to go to work because I was working with vulnerable adults. And so I didn't have the opportunity to work from home. I had to be going in there each day to a big block of flats, meeting people face to face. And I was wondering, how much risk am I putting myself in through for this? And the more questions I asked and the more I dove into what was going on, the more questions I had because things weren't making sense. And so I had to realized very quickly that I had to go off the beaten track and try and find some alternative sources because I wasn't getting the answers that were satisfactory from the mainstream sources. And so in that journey off the beaten track, I started to listen to some content creators and independent researchers and journalists that might be familiar to people listening to this, such as James Corbett and The Last American Vagabond. And I quickly realized that there was a lot being left out of of the mainstream narrative. There were other things going on, and there was a wider, broader context to these events and why they were happening than we were getting through our 6 p.m. Nightly news updates. And when I was going through that process, following James Corbett around to the various places that he was doing interviews, I stumbled upon an interview that he did on the Grand Theft World podcast. And that was my first introduction to the Grand Theft World podcast, first introduction to Richard Grove. And I think it was episode 4 of the Grand Theft World podcast. So very early days of that particular production as well. And they had a hour-long conversation, and it was all about books. And they were talking to each other about the different books that they'd used in their research, in the production of their documentaries, in the production of their podcasts. And I was so impressed and amazed that these books existed dealing with topics that I felt I should know about. And I was very amazed that I'd never heard of some of these topics before. And so that just got me hooked instantly. And I became an avid listener of the Grand Theft World podcast. And I wanted to know who is this gentleman, Richard Grove, who's so well spoken, and he's got a library of books behind him, and he's got his book cam, and he's showing you the quotes and the documents and the evidence and the artifacts. I was so impressed. I wanted to know more about him. And a quick internet search popped up the autonomy landing page. And I thought, after reading through that, this is something that I want to learn more about and I want to get involved in. And from that point on, I often say that from discovering Richard, within I think 2 months, I was enrolled in autonomy just in time for the kickoff of season 5.
All right. Dude, I relate. So when you were joining autonomy, just what was it that that were you looking to be like an entrepreneur? Were you just like what was it that you were seeking to change? Um, I know you just went over like the tumultuous situation with like the COVID lockdowns and all of that. But what was your dream that you were trying to bring into reality?
That's a great question, a great way of putting it. So I was at the time in a sort of dead end job. It was a job that I loved, and I got a lot of satisfaction. As I mentioned, I was a care worker. I was working with vulnerable adults, adults with learning disabilities and autism, and Down syndrome, and these kinds of conditions and challenges. And the team I was working with were wonderful people. I got on really well with them. But the company I worked for, they didn't have any opportunities to move up, and they were really underpaying us for the complexity of the work we were doing. We were getting minimum wage, the legal minimum wage that you're allowed to pay employees in this country. And so I was thinking, I just got married a year before in 2019, and I thought, if I want to make a life with this woman that I've married, that I love, I've got to earn more money. I've got to do something that's going to open up more um, cash flow so that we can have a better life and have a base on which we can buy a house and start a family and do all these wonderful things together that we had planned. And so that is really what appealed to me about the autonomy course. It was this um, opportunity to learn high value skills and to open up more avenues of for work, for working, not only for finding other jobs, but for collaborating and working in areas that I liked, and for developing skills that I already had that I was good at, because I really didn't have any idea what to do. I was doing the usual thing, scrolling through the job portals online, firing off some CVs for things that I was kind of half interested in, but not really. I just thought, well, I could do that and it pays more than what I'm doing now. So I was undergoing a very half-hearted job search, and I really didn't have any good ideas about what I could do or what I wanted to do. And so autonomy appealed to me because I thought it would be a way that I could discover, okay, what is my purpose? What kind of work is aligned with my values and my passions and my talents? Are there ways that I can utilize my creativity in order to get paid and to do something good in the world as well? Because the reason that I enjoyed the job I was in was because I could see immediate effect on the lives of the people who I was working with. And I could see when somebody was having a good day versus having a bad day. It was a very immediate feedback. And I liked working with people in that way. I didn't like so much the idea of sitting at a desk or, filing paper, or I knew I wanted to work with people. And so the autonomy course appealed to me because there were skills such as because a lot of it was like communication based. And I knew that there would be a community. I knew there would be other people who I could talk to, who I could go on this journey with, who I could learn with and practice with. That was the other thing that appealed to me, that there was going to be exercises and things to do that we could practice and rehearse with other people. So I knew it was going to be a kind of social thing as well as an upskilling. So yeah, a lot of different things. It ticked a lot of boxes for me when I was going through the enrollment call, when I was looking at the website. And back at that time, there was no obstacle course that was implemented, I think, during season 5, perhaps before season 6. So I didn't have to go through the obstacle course, but it was really a no-brainer for me. I was after I did the onboarding, not the onboarding call, the blueprint call. I did that call, and I just knew straight away that I wanted to be involved.
And as far as on the other side of enrollment, going through the lecture series, being a part of the forum, because it was the Circle Forum finally during season 5. I'm curious, because in the introduction, you're a man of many hats, and I wanted to know what what your favorite event was to participate in or to attend.
All right. Easily, hands down, it's Do It Live podcast. That became my favorite, but I didn't actually get involved with it so much in the first season that I was part of. Excuse me, got a bit of a tickly throat.
Okay.
Um,
Also have a mute button. So
yes, I've learned to be quick with that. The first season, I didn't really attend or participate in Do It Live. I was more focused on the content of the lectures, taking notes, trying to digest these nuggets of wisdom and these ideas and adjustments to make to my worldview and my own thinking, my own philosophy, and my own attitude to what I was doing with my life. But when season 6 rolled around, there were some spots open in the Do It Live podcast, and I thought, I've I in a previous life I was an English teacher, so I'd done a bit of getting up in front of rooms full of people and talking to them and giving instructions and watching the blank faces on all the students as they stare at you because they don't understand what you're saying. I was an English teacher, so a lot of my students didn't speak English as their first language, so there was that communication barrier to overcome. And I thought, I could probably host a podcast and I could probably benefit from doing that as well. It's not something I've done before. I hadn't spoken up very much in the Q&A sessions. In fact, I remember first deciding to come off mute with a question and being so sort of embarrassed that I flushed red and got very sort of hot under the collar and a bit stressed and fumbling over my words and just very self-conscious just to come off mute and ask a question in one of those Q&A sessions. So when I got the opportunity to get involved and do it live, I thought, why not? What have I got to lose? Every interaction that I'd had throughout my first season had been so uplifting and encouraging and rewarding that I thought, even if I get in this podcast and I make a mess of it and I fumble over my words and it all goes pear shaped, it'll still be a valuable experience. And I'm sure I will still get something worthwhile from that experience. And so my first time doing Do It Live was a lot of fun, and that's still up on the Autonomy. I think it's the Autonomy Unlimited YouTube page. And I enjoyed it so much that I signed up for a second episode that same season. And then I did it again and again. And then I started to also shadow host, as we were talking about before the call began tonight. I began to shadow host for other people to support them through that process because I'd been through it, and so that became one of my favorite things to be involved in. And then after I'd done it a few times, just showing up for other people to see the shows they put together and to participate and to take in their knowledge and their passion and their creativity with what they do with that platform. It's just an absolute joy to see because that's where people can really unleash their creativity. And there's been some incredible uh, kind of multimedia experiences crafted in the Do It Live podcast over the years that I've been participating in that.
So I see that you've come out of your shell pretty much entirely, and that's wonderful. I couldn't help but notice also that you mentioned that during season 5, you just stuck with the autonomy lectures and made that your primary focus. In what ways now, looking back to that period, like how did that approach really end up benefiting you?
Well, one of the things that really appealed to me about the course and about the whole process of getting enrolled was the low pressure. And I didn't know that was what it was until going through the course and learning about the art of low pressure sales and creating a low pressure environment. But that's what I really like. And I didn't have a phrase for it prior to enrolling, but I think the reason it worked well for me in that first series was because there was no pressure. It was made very clear you can sit, you can be on mute, you can turn your video off, and you can just listen in. And there's no obligation to participate and come off mute and ask questions and be part of things and pick up responsibilities and host and shadow host and do all and do role plays and do exercises. There's no pressure to do any of that. It's totally self-directed and you go at your own pace. And I think that makes perfect sense because after all, the course is called autonomy. So you should have the autonomy to go at the pace you choose. And so that first season, I was able to do a lot of listening. And I like doing that anyway. I always had headphones in. I would go on bike rides and I would be listening to podcasts and interviews and documentaries. So having these long form lectures to listen to on a walk or on a long train journey or something was perfect for me. And I just focused on getting that information in and really just soaking it up because it's not dense, but it's very distilled information and it's very pure and it takes a few repetitions, I found at least, for me to really incorporate these little nuggets of wisdom and information into the way I speak and the way I see the world and the way I react to the things going on around me and the way I live my day-to-day life. So no pressure, go at your own pace, and do what you feel comfortable with. And at the same time, there's that gentle encouragement to push a little bit further. So yes, stay with what in your comfort zone, stay with what you're comfortable with, but remember that it is pushing out of that comfort zone. That's where the growth happens, and the growth is where the progress happens. So it was that mixture really of a low pressure environment with the very regular, steady, and sincere encouragement of the of Richard, the teacher, his team, and then all the other people and graduates and non-graduates that I was going through the course with, that made me feel comfortable enough to step out and come off mute and make those first forays into group calls and hosting podcasts. And you know that those that early experience of a low pressure environment has really allowed me to, like you said, come out of my shell, but now create something that I feel very comfortable, confident about, that I'm very proud of, and that I can see building up into something that I do for a living, which is something else we can talk about at some point, maybe a bit later.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, no doubt. Now, I very quickly like, you know, you mentioned that you came off mute and you were like, people are gonna laugh at me or whatever. Like they're gonna think this is a dumb question. How soon did you stop thinking that?
I know exactly. It was when I got a message which said, "Hey, you asked this question in Q&A last week. Can we use it in one of our marketing clips that's going to go on the YouTube website?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "You want to use the thing that I said? You know, the question that I asked and the story I told? You know, you actually want to put that out there for the public?" And that was the moment where I thought, "Goodness me, I might actually be able to. I might have something worth saying to a wider audience that I can put my name on, that I can put out there into the ether, into the public realm." So that was the point where I gained a lot of confidence, and I started to think, all right, maybe this is something that I should pursue. Maybe I should seek out more opportunities that are a little more responsibility, a little more challenging, to see where I can take it. So getting that feedback, that was a real big boost.
It's like almost like saying it disarms your anxiety as well. Like it takes it right out of the equation because now you're in this mindset where you don't have to be timid or quiet any longer because it's just a I had it on the tip of my tongue and then I lost it. I need to work on my communication skills, obviously. But it's very comforting to get such feedback, and then next thing you know, like you're in the Q&A all the time, or you're just feeling a whole lot more confident, like you mentioned. Um, did did you have many experiences with Richard? I know you're overseas, so you must have been in the Sunday Q&As. What was it like working on that kind of schedule? Like, did you find it challenging? Were you at the lectures live every week? What was that process like?
So what I realized is that I'm not very good staying up late or getting up at crazy hours in the morning. So I never made the actual lecture itself live, but I did get pretty good at getting up early enough to catch the Q&A at the end of the lecture. So that would be what, 1 or 2 a.m. Richard's time, and then that'd be about 6 a.m. for me. So if I was sensible and I went to bed at a decent time on Friday night, then I could set my alarm for 5 or 6 on a Saturday morning and get up and catch the back end of the Q&A and participate and ask a question. So it worked really well. And the Sunday's Q&A, the time for me worked out, and I'm in England, by the way, the time for me worked out about 5 p.m., which was no problem at all. Very, very manageable time, easy time to attend on a Sunday evening where I don't usually do very much anyway. But the actual lecture itself, I had to usually listen on the replay, but they always get posted very quickly, and you can get access to the replay very soon after the lecture's gone out. Plus, you get access to the previous seasons. And so, if you are not able to make one live, but you want to listen to that lecture for that week, you can listen to the week whatever of a previous season to fill in the gap while you wait for the next one to come out. So the way the course is structured, the timing of the sessions, the live sessions, and then the back catalog of goodies in previous seasons, which unlock, I think, when you graduate, really ensure that you have no excuses to not get whatever it is that you need at that time, whether it's a Q&A or a lecture or a replay of something that you heard about that you missed at the time. So it's structured in a really good way for.
Speaking of those goodies, after graduation, what's your favorite one? Have you located your favorite one? Can you say there's a favorite?
I think for me, it was Jay Dyer's Philosophy 101 course. That was a real eye opener. I'd never studied philosophy, um, never been interested in it. The little, whenever I picked up a book by Plato or something and flicked through it, I thought, I can't even understand this. I just put it back on the shelf. Um, so having Jay go through it from the early pre-Socratics, all the way up to the present day with his humor, with his delivery, his style, his ability to make it entertaining, and to have access to that because we were in autonomy and part of of already enrolled in autonomy. That was a real bonus that I would encourage anybody to check out if you are hungry for more after you graduate your season of autonomy. That is one bonus that I think was very powerful. And then also the Ryan Christian How to Do Objective Research. That was a
Yeah.
really good session too. So those two, they're all great. I mean, all the bonuses and goodies are fantastic, but those two really stood out to me because I was fans of Jay and Last American Vagabond. So to have those guys come in and participate and cooperate and give that to the community and to be able to have access to that by virtue of being enrolled on autonomy, just it was really quite powerful and just incredibly valuable. It just pays so much, like you get so much, when you enroll, that it's kind of hard to summarize adequately. But it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Aren't you glad that those goodies were post graduation?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. It because I get overwhelmed quite easily if I have too many things to think about, a lot of things going on, a lot of options in front of me. So making sure that you get to go through the course and graduate first, that gives you the foundation to then start to say, okay, what is it that I want to do, and what do I need to do to get there, and what steps do I need to take, and you'll have a better framework through which to go after all these extra avenues of learning and education. So yes, it's structured in a really good way.
So enrolled in season 5. We're coming up where, well, week 2 of season 12 is tonight. How many more seasons have you taken in the lecture series? Have you taken it in like piecemeal, or have you attended the full lecture series again? What have you done like that?
So I've done. I think I did the whole lecture series in season 6, and then I kind of tapered off from there onwards. So I've probably been through the whole 12-week course twice in its entirety, and then I've just picked out and revisited specific lectures as needed. But I keep coming back each season just to meet the new intake of students, to keep an eye on what new events are coming up, what new things are being added to the calendar that are interesting and that look appealing, and it's always just an enriching experience. The new blood that comes in, so to speak, just revivifies things. And there's often a lull between seasons where the activity sort of is less pronounced as people are going off into the real world and applying the things that they learned. And then when the new season's coming on and more people enroll, then the activity picks back up again. It always gives me a buzz. So I'm more involved now in keeping an eye on what events are going on outside of the actual course. But I still dip into Q&As, the Sunday Q&As, because they're always a pleasure, and you never know who's going to show up and what problems Richard is going to solve for people. And it's just, I always find it that it's always an absolute pleasure to watch Richard work as he's fielding questions and he's helping people move through their challenges and to gain new perspectives and insights onto things and new options. And he comes up with incredible advice and ideas just so consistently, week after week, that I never get tired of dropping into those Sunday Q&As and just to hear what's being discussed. And then every now and again, somebody gets Richard off on a tangent and asks him about his, books on the Rothschilds or something. And then we get a sort of impromptu history lesson, which I also love geeking out on as well. And I'm always sitting there with my
Hmm.
paper and pad ready to note down any book that he recommends or he shares, so I can try and track
Yeah.
down a copy myself.
Yeah. Likewise, for sure. It is truly the gift that keeps on giving, and that man definitely has a talent for like off the cuff. Just he's a very talented teacher for sure. Um, so now I kind of want to shift into a little bit about, what your life has been like after graduation. What sort of things have you been able to accomplish having graduated, the learning curve that you went through, and what's going on in your world today that might not have been possible had you not gone through the lecture series?
Yeah, great question. So the first big shift that happened, the big opportunity that came my way was, as I mentioned, I was in a very low paying job that didn't have much progression, and it was not really going anywhere. And so I was looking for new ways to make income, and I was playing with different ideas, but I was always quite unsure about any one idea. I'd think, oh, maybe that, or maybe this. And well, through the autonomy community and the group who I enrolled with on season 5, and the skills that we were practicing in that, particularly the interview skill, I was notified of an opportunity at a company where a fellow season 5 student was working. And he mentioned, "Hey, we've got this project coming up," and he knew that I had a background in English language teaching and a degree in English literature, and so my forte was sort of language and communications. And he said, "We've got this big project coming up, and we're going to need somebody on the team to be the writer of this framework, this document, the corporate framework that we need to produce. We need a lead author, someone who can make sure it's properly written and it makes sense." And is spell checked and all these kind of things. I know you've got that background. Do you fancy, coming in for an interview? And I'll set that up, and we'll see if my colleagues think you're a good fit, we can bring you in. And because I've been through the autonomy course and had practiced the interview, uh, what would you call it? The interview exercise with other students so many times. Um, I got an interview at this company and I went along and was successful. And I was able to leave my sort of dead end, low paying job and move into this other company that had a lot more opportunity, way more potential for advancement and progression. And it's an international company, so they work all over the world, and there's offices all over the country here in England, and all different areas where they work on huge projects and small projects. So it was just a whole new world for me, and I was able to get in and get on that project and be the lead author for their for this sort of 6 month corporate framework that we needed to develop. And that has been my career since, and since then I've had a promotion and a pay rise. And so that's my main sort of bread and butter, pay the bills type of daily activity. And I'm still working there now. And I've moved into risk management. And so I'm currently, again, on a commission for a very large project I'm the lead risk manager, and I'm training up another person who's joined the team. And so that was a huge life-changing opportunity for me, because it meant that I could earn some good money that I was able to save up. My wife and I were able to buy a car, which we couldn't afford before. We were able to go on holidays. It just opened up a lot more potential for us in what we were able to do with our lives, which was fantastic. And then I was able to get her a job in a different part of the business, but in the same company. And she's came in. She got a promotion as well. She's really well regarded and well thought of by her team and her colleagues. So if we hadn't have signed enrolled in autonomy, I never would have built up those skills and the confidence to go after that job, I never would have made the connection with the guy who worked there. And I didn't even know that company existed, even though it's an English company and they have offices all over the country. I'd never heard of them because I'm not really in the corporate world of consulting, right? But now I am, and I'm almost 3 years down into this career as well now at this point. And so that was a huge opportunity. But so that's one thing. Just I changed my career and I got into a job which has that scope for progression and development should I choose to go along that route. And then excuse me. And then the other thing is that my kind of passion, let's call it my like passion project, I've managed to build that up gradually in my free time, little by little over the last couple of years as well. So as I mentioned, when I first joined an autonomy, I was quite shy. I didn't mind speaking with people one on one, so I could do calls with other students all day long, and I did for a while. But when it came to the group calls, when you have 55, 60, 70 people, then I was a lot more hesitant. And as I mentioned, I overcame that shyness, and then I volunteered for the Do It Live podcast. Eventually, I was hosting mastermind groups and running mastermind groups with a group of 6 other new students who joined, which was an incredibly rewarding experience too. I then started doing helping Richard out on Sunday Q&A by running the breakout rooms and asking the question and putting people into the breakout rooms every Sunday. So I really enjoyed that responsibility as well. It was a lot of fun. Nice to be there every Sunday just to be part of that. As I mentioned, I loved listening to the Sunday Q&As. And then about 2 years ago, I thought, right, I've got all these books. I mean, I'm pointing behind me. They're not there right now, but at that point I had all these books and I thought, what's the point of having all these books if I'm A, not reading them, and B, keeping not telling people about what's in them. And so I
Yeah.
thought, right, I'm going to start doing book reviews. And so I opened a YouTube account, YouTube channel, and I just started reading these books and highlighting quotes. And then I got on the video recorder and I hit record. And then for an hour, I would just read some quotes from the book and talk about what I'd read and what I thought and what I liked about it. And then in the very early days, I had a 10-year-old laptop. The audio was terrible. There was no production value there whatsoever. I was recording using the camera and the mic built into my laptop, so they sounded awful.
Yeah.
But I just did it. I just thought I'll just do it and put it up and share it because at that point I was so comfortable in the autonomy community, and I'd had all of my anxiety and fear had gone because I knew whatever I put out, I would get genuine, honest feedback and encouragement and tips. And people would look at it and say, okay, here's where you can improve, but well done for giving it a go, right? I didn't have any fear about sharing my early work within autonomy because I knew the people there have the culture of excellence. So nobody's going to go, oh, what the hell's that? And laugh at the fact that the video only had 20 pixels and I was stumbling through my words. I knew that it was a place where I could share something, even though it was rough around the edges, and just say, hey, this is my first attempt. What do you think? And the feedback came in and I really enjoyed doing it. And so I continued. And then I just iterated and gradually I put because I got this job, I was able to put a little bit of money into a proper microphone and then a proper webcam and then a new laptop. And I was able to just piece by piece, just build it up to the point where I could make, a reasonably good production, where now that has since evolved to live streaming. I've got my own book cam following after, in Richard's footsteps. I've got a book cam and I'm live streaming just like we were talking about before we went live on this call, just reading through books and just talking about them. And people tune in and leave comments and they thank me for the work that I'm doing. And I really love it. And that's kind of my side project that I'm looking now to wind up into something that actually pays and that I can do full time. So that's the current goal for me, and what I'm working on. But you can see the progression from those early days of being a wallflower and just listening in and actually thinking, I don't belong here. When I first enrolled, I felt like, oh, these people, they're so smart. They've got these amazing skills. They've got some of them businesses already. Some of them have got all these, they've traveled further than I have. They've they've earned all this money, and I just thought, I don't know what I've got to bring to the table. But because of the culture of excellence, I was really able to grow and develop and try new things and be encouraged and receive feedback. And over time, the distance that I've come is quite phenomenal, I think, when I look back to when I first enrolled and where I was at in life versus where I am now, which is just about to move into a house. And I've got a career that I can pursue, and I've also got a sort of side passion project that's looking like it could do pretty well and could become something too. So having more options open to me, having a more optimistic view about the future, and having a deeper belief in myself and my own abilities and my own worth as uh, as a person who's got something to offer, right? Because I think that's what I didn't have before. I didn't have really any belief in myself. It was just little old me. Well, what have I got to do? What could I possibly do that's valuable or worthwhile? And that's totally changed. That's done a whole 180 now, where I'm realizing that, oh, being me with my life experience, with my passion, my interests, with my focus, my determination, and my just unique mix of all those things, I can actually help people. And so I'm in the process of figuring out, who I want to help and what it is I want to help them do. Yeah, so it's been a real huge transformation, and none of it would have happened. None of that would have happened if I hadn't have took the plunge and signed up for that first season of Autonomy back in 2021. It would have been.
Nick, before we excuse me, before we open up the room for general Q&A, I just want to extend my gratitude for the work that you do. I really admire it, the level of care, the level of the just everything that you bring to the table, brother, is just top notch. And just from me to you personally, thank you for being not only being here tonight, but like what you do for the education, the educational endeavors, and it's just it really it's just amazing. So um, I want to give you a chance to just promote your YouTube channel and your work so everybody here can enjoy it like I have. And you can take a minute and do that. I've already taken the liberty to share a link to your YouTube channel into the group chat here. So please take it away on that, and then we'll transition to Q&A.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's we've all got a role to play, and we've all got a part to play in lifting up the consciousness and the awareness of humanity, I think. And each one of us will have an audience out there. I can't reach everybody, and Richard can't reach everybody, and Mark Passio can't reach everybody, but we can all reach somebody, right? And but the only way that's not true is if we're not putting stuff out there. And so I'm really glad and humbled and grateful anytime people vibe and dig with what I do, because to me it's like it's no big deal. I'm just coming up on camera reading some books. But when I get the feedback and people like it and appreciate it, then I just feel incredibly grateful, because it's such a wonderful thing to hear. And so thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. And yeah, so I'm currently on YouTube, has most of my work, the whole sort of archive. But then I recently also opened Rumble and Odyssey channels, where I've been slowly populating with stuff as well. They don't have as much on them yet, but at the moment the plan is to keep live streaming to those three platforms. And I say all I do, all we do really, because it's not just me, it's the people who tune in and the viewers. We just read books, and we grab a book and we get it on the book cam, and we start at page one and we read a couple of chapters, and then we just have a discussion and a conversation about what we read. And I'll try and flesh out the book a little bit sometimes with some other articles or resources or some contextual information. And we'll try and plug it into the great work that people like Richard and Jay Dyer and James Corbett and Mark Passio do. I try and, you know, follow in the footsteps of the greats, and try and give my own humble contribution. And it's all made possible by people tuning in and getting in the chat and having a good time because people help me when I'm doing these live streams with if there's a word I come across that I don't know, they'll look it up for me or teach me how to pronounce a name, or they'll tell me about other things, other contextual information that I didn't know. And so it's really a group effort, a team effort. And so if anybody out there hasn't checked out, it's Hayes Reviews, and that's on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey if you type that in. And I also have like Instagram and X as well, but I don't do a lot on there. I just have those in case I ever need them at some point. But the main action is the live streams, YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, and we're going to be restarting those in next month, November sometime. And the next book we're going to be covering is the Milner Fabian Conspiracy by Eoin Ratiu, which is a 2012 book. There it is, dude. You got a copy. I'm so impressed. Now, did you buy that back when it was cheap, or did you have to take the hit and because I've seen the price of some of those. Some people try and sell that for $300 now.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I'm pretty sure mine is a facsimile. I'm not positive about that. So maybe I read this and then you and I collab. And if you have an original, a verified original copy, the reason why I think it's facsimile is because of the binding is cut off. I don't know if you can
Oh
see that. It just
yeah,
says hyphen Fabian conspiracy. So that gives me pause. But so far, it seems to be checking out with some of the other research I've done in the past about this book. Like I heard about this book from Jay Dyer, and
yeah,
then
same.
and then I immediately was like, that's going on the list. So I want to get that. And I have like Milner's Second War here, all the Anglo-American establishment stuff that I can get my hands on. Um, in the mail, there's a copy of Milner's Young Men that explains like all the people that were in his kindergarten. And a copy of the history of the Rhodes Trust is also in kind of on its way. So
Nice, nice. That's great to see. And I'm always telling people on my channel as well, buy books, get down to the thrift shops and the secondhand shops and start stocking up on them. Somebody in my Telegram chat was showing me about an EU directive that's coming, which is all about how because books are made of paper, that therefore they're bad for the environment. We can't keep using up all this paper to print books,
yeah,
right? So they're actually coming with this angle of books are bad for the environment now. And so I would just tell anybody get out there and just grab anything that looks interesting, that you wish you knew more about, that is old, any old books you can find, grab them and just start building up a library, because I think I can at least envisage a time where if you have a bunch of books, that's going to be a valuable thing to share with people. Because when information gets harder to find, when the internet is even more incomprehensible because it's full of bots and AI and all this other nonsense, it's going to be good to have a physical thing like, hey, this was printed before the internet came out, let's see what it
yeah.
says. It might give us some solid, reliable information rather than, all this dead internet that we're swimming in these days.
I got into the same mindset when I heard Aaron and Melissa Dykes reporting on something called the Hattie Trust, which is the compilation of what is basically a digital library, and it is pretty disturbing. Like it's like just like a real life library, only digital. They have like 3 copies of a PDF that you can borrow, and it's like, and people just don't know about things like libgen.is or even pdfdrive.org. I think it's org. Like these are incredible digital resources that people can utilize to get a bunch of this stuff for free. uh John Tiggy, who's not here tonight, he found a first edition copy of Tragedy and Hope on PDF that's in the forum. I wish I could help narrow down where it is in the forum. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in it's I know it's in there, but I can't tell you where it is. My bad, guys. Sorry. But it's there. So, anyways,
Just
Nick, if
quickly on the topic of Tragedy and Hope, I bought a first edition copy of Tragedy and Hope, and I couldn't believe it. And I found this and it was first edition, Carol Quigley, Tragedy and Hope, $300. I
what?
was like, what? I gotta buy. So I ordered it. I placed the order straight away, and I was like, I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. And it was a bookshop in South Africa, right? And so I had to pay, I don't know how much, $50 or something to get it shipped. And then it arrived and it was not a first edition. It was like a
Oh,
second printing,
oh,
1970 something. And they are actually worth about that amount, the amount that I paid. But for a second there, I thought I'd found this ridiculous bargain, and I was like, I can't wait for that. I'm gonna be so happy if and then it wasn't. Yeah, so it was a bit of a fail, but I'm still glad I've got it because it's still a very nice artifact to have. And as far as I can tell, it's not censored, but I haven't
oh.
checked every page yet.
Well, page 62 and 63.
They're in there. They're in there. So I think we might be good on that count.
All right. If I don't do this now, we're just going to keep going, you and
Yeah.
I. So I want to make sure everyone else has their chance to enjoy your company. So if anyone has anything they want to talk to Nick about, please take it away. Don't hold back. And if not, Nick and I
Hey,
can just.
hey,
No,
hey, Nick.
I do have a question. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Renee. Go ahead,
Oh,
Renee.
thank you. I want to know what's been your favorite book to review so far?
Oh, that is a great question. My favorite book to review. So I've done book reviews where I read the book and then pre-record it and edit it and upload it. And then I've done live streams where I read the book from start to finish. So I'll tell you my favorite review and my favorite live stream. My favorite book to review was Hidden History by Doherty and McGregor. And this is the book which James Corbett based his World War One conspiracy documentary on, largely, as well as his other meticulous research and sources. But that book really blew me away because it rewrites the narrative of World War One, and it
Uh-huh.
puts my own heritage as a British man in a totally different light. And so that was a real paradigm shattering experience. And I read that and I was absolutely enthralled. And I've since actually received a message from the daughter of one of the authors who left a message on my YouTube channel, and we got in touch. And she said that I have full permission to read both of his books in their entirety on the channel because he's not worried about copyright. He just wants the information out there. And I also have been told that he's writing a third book. So
Oh,
doing that one, and this was early days in the channel before I had a nice microphone and a nice webcam, and I was just doing it with my old laptop. So for that to be, I did that 2 years ago, and then earlier this year, I got the message from his daughter, and hey Nick, I'm really glad you're doing this. Let's connect, and so it just shows the power of do something and put it out there, and then you never know when the payoff and the benefit and the reward will come back from that. Because I just, for me, I thought no one's ever going to see this except my friends in autonomy. And
mhm.
then now the daughter of the author is aware of it, the author himself is aware of it, and he's given me permission to read the books again on it on the channel. So that was my favorite review. And for my favorite book that I read through as a live stream, I think it's got to be the Fabian Freeway by Rose Martin, which is all about the Fabian socialists and how they infiltrated America and how they transformed first the British system, but then the American system into a socialistic type system. That book, it was incredible, very detailed, very well referenced and well researched. And I just, again, it just opened new, it just shattered my understanding of my own country and my own history and the
Everything.
legacy of the ruling class of Brits that I've my ancestors have been living under, and so that was a lot of fun to read through.
So it's a paradigm shift. But before, uh, well, this shift for you, you said you were a teacher
Right.
and you were teaching history,
English.
English. I see. Okay. And what age were you teaching? I mean, the students.
Yes.
How old were your
I
students?
did actually teach pretty much all ages. So I had a
Mhm.
from I was tutoring very young children on one-to-one and small groups all the way up to adults in their 40s, 50s and 60s. So I did the whole range at various times. I did a few different jobs in a few different countries in Southeast Asia. I was
Mhm.
bouncing around and doing different roles. So I had a good taste of all different ages, and I much preferred young adults because the children, I just couldn't control them. I couldn't keep them focused, and they had no real incentive to listen to this like English guy. Like they had no
Right.
reason to listen to me. They weren't so interested. They were more interested in their computer games or whatever it was that younger children are into. Uh, so I much preferred the young adults. I could have more of a stimulating discussion and conversation with them, and a bit more of a back and forth. But that was a very good time, and I grew a lot doing that job as well because I experienced some fairly severe anxiety before most of my lessons, and there were times where I was really close to like panic attacks in the prep lead up stage to the lesson. And so that was something I was kind of dealing with. And then I would get in the lesson. And then once you're there, the panic and the stress would dissipate quite a bit because it's like, well, I'm here now. I'm gonna have to do something. I
Right.
can't just stand here and freak out. But in the lead
Right.
up, oh, I put myself through the ringer in the like overthinking and stressing in the prep. So it taught me a lot about myself, and it gave me the impetus to investigate and learn about anxiety and what causes it. And through that, I learned a lot about nutrition and healthier living and how to handle these sorts of things. So it was a blessing eventually,
Oh,
but it was tough.
one thing goes to another, and I can also see how you would be so attracted to the books and the history of our culture, let's say. So thank you for that. I really appreciate everything you said.
Well, thank you for the question. It was great to talk.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
have a request and two questions. The
Okay.
one request is Jay Dyer. Could you put up some kind of
Hey, Barry, just real quick, sorry to cut you off, but we can barely A, hear you, and
oh,
B,
oh,
I think just come closer to the mic.
yeah, that's
Let's try that.
you're
Just really
okay.
muffled.
All right. So first question is, can you put up something where we can find Jay Dyer?
Yes.
Okay.
He's on YouTube. He's easy to find.
Oh, okay.
His regular broadcast is called Jay's Analysis.
All right. Here's analysis. Okay. Let's see. First question would be, can you tell me something about what you think about knowledge in general?
I'm sorry,
And
Barry. I'm quite struggling to. It's like muffled. The audio
oh,
keeps coming in and out.
okay. Asking you if you can tell us about your general idea of knowledge. And secondly, what is your fundamental worldview?
Okay, I heard the second one, which was what's your fundamental worldview, right?
The first is, what do you generally think of knowledge?
What do I generally think of knowledge?
Yeah, how do you view knowledge?
How do I view knowledge?
Right.
Okay, so how do I view knowledge? Um, I like it. I want more of it, and I think the best place to find it is in books. But the way I view knowledge is, it's uh, right. I'm kind of ad-libbing this. I don't have a prepared go-to answer for this kind of question, but it's, I suppose, would be something like information which matches reality, which gives an accurate description of reality, the objective reality around us, um, that we all inhabit and share. And then I look at knowledge as kind of, in the sense of the trivium, the three-stage trivium. You've got knowledge, and then knowledge is like the grammar, the first step. So it's like data and information. That's kind of how I view it. And then it's what you do with that then it becomes something else, then becomes something more. Can you use that knowledge? Can you pass it on? Can you get better results in your life, change your actions and your behavior? But you have to get that knowledge first, that information, that data, to know how things work and where you're at, and how to get to where you want to go. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of that's kind of how I approach it.
All right, let me follow up a little bit on that. First of all, your view of reality, is reality random, or is it somehow logically or lawfully connected? And secondly, is knowledge integrated, or is it isolated topic?
Okay, great. I think reality is organized. I think it's designed. I think there was a creator of some force kind type description. I don't experience random things on a day-to-day basis. There's a predictable pattern of the way things happen, night and day. There's cycles. There's gravity. There's if I drink too much beer, I have a hangover, cause and effect. So to my mind, it looks like things are not random. Things are ordered, and there's a structure, and therefore a design, and therefore a purpose. That's about as far as I can go. I don't get into theology or these kind of things. And then the second part was, is knowledge integrated, or can you remind me, please?
Diversified. Silo topics. Silo knowledge.
Oh, siloed or integrate. Oh, okay. Okay. So I think integrated, because my own experience has been, the more I learn, the more I realize that I don't know anything. So it's like, because you learn about one thing, and then that opens up 10 other things you need to learn about to understand that thing, and each one of those opens up 10 more things. So my experience, I would say it's integrated. It's not really siloed, although I suppose we silo it to just try and hold back some of that overwhelm and difficulty with trying to get all of it in and get all the links and the connections between everything. So I suppose it's more of a utility for us to keep us sane, that we sometimes silo things by topics, I would think.
Is knowledge hierarchical?
Hierarchical. Is knowledge hierarchical? That one I'm not sure about. I'd have to think more about that one. Yeah, is knowledge hierarchical? Because I've heard, when it comes to hierarchy, I've heard Jordan B. Peterson talk about this, and how lobsters have hierarchy. I think he says that lobsters have hierarchy. And there's this question of, are hierarchies natural, or are they something that we kind of create? So yeah, I think you've just taken me to the limit of my my understanding and ability to discuss that topic. I'm not sure if knowledge is hierarchical. I guess okay. So let me have a go. In terms of language, right? You've got the alphabet and the letters. That's going to be a foundational level. And then on top of that, you're going to have words made up of letters. And then you're going to have sentences made up of words. So you could kind of build a hierarchy in that way. So maybe.
Variety, classes, categories.
That's hierarchical, right? Varieties, classes, and categories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then I think, yeah, it sounds like it is.
Have you read Aristotle?
Who, sorry?
Aristotle?
No.
Okay. Aristotle has a principle that he calls the four causes. The formal cause, the material cause, the efficient cause, and the final cause. And he, in effect, is saying that in order to know something, you must know its four causes. What do you think of that?
I think Aristotle probably thought about this a lot more than I did. So I should learn about that at some point. Interesting. But yeah, it's areas that I don't know much about. I did mention, I think earlier, that when I first picked up Plato, it just went over my head and I put it back down again. So I need to rely on people like Jay Dyer to give me my philosophy. But but saying that, I do recognize the importance of these texts and these writers and thinkers and authors. They're foundational to culture in many ways. And so I definitely need to, that's an area that's a bit gray for me, and I need to shine a bit of light on that and do some learning for sure. So.
Yeah,
Hey, Barry, I again, I hate to cut you off, but your microphone is not doing any justice to what you're trying to communicate to us. So unless you can mitigate that situation, I feel like we got to move on, dude. I'm sorry. I really don't want to do that to you, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I'll get close to the mic here. Is that better?
Yeah, that's 100 times better.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, close to the mic. Okay, wanted to say that it's taken me almost 50 years, so it's not an easy topic, knowledge integration. So don't worry about that. overnight.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I've got another 50 years left to get that job done then.
Well, on the
And
bright side, the autonomy course, it really helps with bringing out of everybody some critical thinking skills that may be laying dormant within them, and it really does help out a tremendous amount in that aspect. So, you know, for all you people out there wondering if that's an aspect of the course, it sure as heck is.
well, actually, Richard gave me a deal between his course and my course, and so I've promised to deliver a knowledge integration course to the community.
Cool.
So that'll be coming up.
Nice.
And,
I'm going to keep an eye out for that.
and the last question I had was about your fundamental worldview.
Okay. My fundamental worldview. So one thing I can say is that prior to joining Autonomy and now after having been involved for 3 years, my fundamental worldview is completely different. I think I'd never really heard the term worldview before enrolling in Autonomy. So I'd absorbed or downloaded or soaked up whatever the people around me were doing and thinking and saying. I'd listened to a little bit of Alan Watts, the English sort of entertainer, philosopher. So I'd taken on some of his kind of Eastern mysticism ideas, and I quite liked those. But I hadn't thought in any great detail about a worldview. And that was something that I encountered through conversations with a good friend in Autonomy Season 5. His name's Dom, and he's living in Germany. He's since enrolling in the course, he started his own business. So I don't speak to him very often now because he's just flat out focusing on building up his business, which he owns with a friend of his. But he introduced me to Jay Dyer, who introduced me to worldview and talking about worldview and debating and discussing different worldviews. And so I came to the sort of thinking that the random, chaotic, everything is an accident worldview doesn't make any sense. Because if that was the way it was, nothing would be predictable. There would be strange things happening all the time because it would be random and chance and chaos, right? So that's what I was touching on earlier at the start when you first asked me my first question. Now that I've been thinking more about and applying a more rigorous thought process to these kind of questions, as we've learned in the course and through conversations with other people in the community, I think the existence of a creator who has put into being and into effect the physical and the spiritual or psychological laws that we are bound by. I think that explanation of reality makes a lot more sense. So my worldview would be something along the lines of Mark Passio's kind of view that there is a creator and the creator put laws in place, and the more aligned that we can live with those laws, the better off we are and the people around us will be. And the more we fight and resist and try to kick back against those laws, then the more sort of trouble and stress and strife there's going to be. So hopefully that gives an inkling. But as you can tell, I'm not very well versed in discussing deeply thought out and articulated worldview kind of discussion. But I appreciate the question.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's an interesting field of study for sure. You know, randomness, determinism. How do they complement each other? You know, free will, natural law.
Nick, James, good to see you guys.
Carlos.
Hey,
James,
Carlos.
thanks so much for helping out today. And Nick, always a pleasure. I'm glad to finally see your bookcase. I thought you had a new setup there. I do have a question for you. I know the hours passed here, but my question is kind of a personal question because, you know, when I joined Autonomy, I had no idea what to expect. And I'm super curious about like your journey with evolving into like Hayes reviews, and I think that there's a lot of value there. And so like my question is, when you joined Autonomy, did you have an idea that you would be on camera recording yourself? Is that something that was like that you thought about, or is that something that just naturally came out through the
Yeah.
courses?
Yeah, good question. No, I came in with with no expectations. I didn't know what I was in for. I didn't know who I was going to meet. I just knew that this course resonated with me and I needed something. I needed to do something. I knew that it involved learning, and I really trusted Richard through seeing his work on Grand Theft World and his excellent articulate way of speaking. So I trusted him, and I thought I want to learn what this guy's got to teach. I had no idea where he was going to lead me at all. And it's funny that you mentioned that being on camera, and because I was thinking before the call tonight about my journey and the chronology, and I was thinking like, why did I start live streaming? And I realized, and I remember what it was, right? So what happened, as I mentioned earlier in the call, at some point I was invited to be an autonomy guide, and I was running a mastermind group with new students, and then I volunteered to do the breakout rooms on the Sunday Q&A calls where we split off into small groups and we have discussions and we get given a question and we share our thoughts and opinions and experiences. It's often people's favorite aspect of the Sunday Q&A are the breakout rooms. And I was running those. And when I got that responsibility, I was told, "Hey, Nick, here's a lower third that you can use." And I didn't know what a lower third was, but it's a banner that goes across the bottom of the screen that has your name and tells people, whatever information you want to put on it. And I was given a lower third, which was just a little sort of file that sat on my computer that was an animation. And I said, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what it is. And then the person who was helping me with that said, "Oh, well, get this program called OBS." I said, "Okay." So I downloaded OBS, and then I put the lower third, and then I messed with that, and then I thought, "Oh, this is pretty neat. I can put a graphic on the screen, and I'm using OBS right now. I can just show you very quickly here. You should be able to see now in my lower corner. Oh, I don't know if my name's
Yes.
covering up, but you can see the
No, no,
logo,
I can
right?
see it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I learned how to do this, and that was neat. And then when I was playing around with OBS, because of that invitation to use a lower third, I noticed there was a button in the corner that just said "Start streaming," and I thought, I wonder what happens if I click that. Right. And that's literally the reason that I started live streaming, was just because I was invited to do the Q&A and invited to use a lower third. And I was told to download OBS, and OBS has a button that says live stream, start streaming. And that is it. No,
Love
I
it.
didn't have any plan, no forethought. I never saw myself as a content creator or a live streamer or a YouTuber. That was literally the journey. So it's a very, and that's been my experience since enrolling. And what I say to people is, there's a certain element of faith of belief that keep moving forward and keep participating and trying new things. And even if you don't have your plan or you don't know where it's going to go, have some faith, because that's what I did for the first few seasons. It was like I just kept showing up and participating, and people would say, "Oh, what are you working on?" I'd be like, "I don't know." "And what are you going to do?" "Well, I'm not sure, but I'm just showing up and I'm taking it in and I'm trying things, and now this is where it is. This is where it's come to, where I'm actually starting to take it's starting to take shape, and I'm realizing that I have some skills, and I'm starting to identify who, my what my offer is and who it is that I want to focus on helping. And so yeah, it's hard to predict how these things unfold. But when you experience it and you look back, you're like, "Oh yeah, obviously that's the way it had to be. Otherwise I wouldn't have got to
Right.
where I am."
I absolutely love that answer, man. Thanks so much for that. And if you guys haven't already seen on the chat, we posted some links, some free gifts, and also the strategy for success blueprint call. So if you haven't already done so, make sure to sign up and click on that.
Thanks, Carlos. Anybody else want to ask a question to Nick?
I'm good for time. So if anybody has anything they want to ask, please.
All right, I want to say one thing here. This thing behind me is a picture of perspective. There are three general perspectives. The first one is our daily life, our material perspective, and that's diversified perspective. That's cause and effect. Cause is separate from effect, separation. And then there's the farthest thing, a picture behind there, the farthest line shows waves and a network of various frequencies, energy, and vibration. That's a unified, connected universe. That's much more essential or fundamental to the, and in the middle, the green part is the essential perspective. And that is the fact that human beings have a foot in the material world and they have a foot in the unified world. And so we share two kinds of perspectives, and that makes a big difference as to how the world runs. And so it's a good thing to know that you have three different, actually you have four different bodies, but you have a physical body, you have a higher self body, you have a morphological body of collective conscious, and then you have the universal cosmic body, which is everything and everybody and all there is. So it's just a wider viewpoint of the world that you might find interesting. That's all.
Well, thank you, Barry. Well, I still have, yeah, I still have one question for Nick. Should I raise my hand? Are you you mentioned way earlier tonight that you had hopes in starting a family. Where are you with that?
We're working on it. We've just moved out of a rental and into a property that is ours that we bought. That was quite kind of a key thing to get accomplished beforehand because we've been living in rentals and small flats, not a lot of space, and we finally got into a place that has a nice big garden and it's in a beautiful area, lots of other families and schools and lots of access to nature. And so we're really happy at the minute. The process is the stage that we're at is just doing things, getting the house ready. So we're kind of doing some plastering and painting, and I've been chiseling bricks to put in some new plug sockets and getting the house ready so we can move in at the end of the month. And so hopefully, you know, God willing, and if we're very lucky enough to be blessed, then we're going to be getting getting things going by the end of the year. Well, not by the end of the year, but certainly next year sometime, you know, if it all goes according to plan. I'm just now arguing with my wife about whether or not we need a television in the house. I'm saying we don't. You know, we got books and board games. Why do we need a TV? But she thinks we do need one.
And I
Oh,
have
well.
a
There could be a
question.
sequel to The Lord of the Rings. I'm on her side.
There you go. Just where are you in the UK?
So I'm in the Northwest, and we're going to be moving to a very southern part of Manchester.
Okay.
So yeah, it's the part of the country where I'm from. I'm actually living in my hometown right now. We've been here for almost 2 years, and it's a beautiful part of England. It's much cheaper than the other areas, pretty much on the whole. I'm very blessed and fortunate to be from here, to have grown up here. But I had to live in Asia for 6 years to really appreciate how lucky I was to be born here. Not that, I mean, I don't mean that it would have been bad if I was born in Asia, but I mean, when you spend a long time away from a place and you come back, you see it with new eyes. And when I came back home after living away for a long time, I was like, oh my goodness, it's actually really nice around here. And it's beautiful. We got a lot of hills and valleys and stunning vistas and woodland walks and rivers and streams and things. And so I feel very good and rejuvenated when I spend time in the nature around here. And I think it's a good energetically, it's a good part of the world, I would say. So yeah, if you're ever in the north of England, shoot me a message.
Well, I'm thinking about it. You
All
never
right.
know where I'm going to go, but I hear you. It's, there's no place like home, and
Right.
you really learn to love it. So good for you. I'm glad you're there, and congratulations on the new home. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, Nick, as we're coming to the close here, I just want to give you the opportunity to kind of just take the wheel. And if there's anything about autonomy that we haven't really gone over with you, if you could share that with us, that would be fantastic.
Sure. We've pretty much hit on all my favorite parts of autonomy, but one one we haven't talked about is the lifetime enrollment, which to me I didn't realize at the time, but that has been one of the greatest aspects of the course because I still have a massive amount of learning and growing and development to do. I'm still in that process. I still feel I joke with new um, participants in the course as they come in. I've been here since season 5, but I still always feel like I'm just at the beginning of my journey. I always feel like I'm moving forward and I've got something else to accomplish and I don't know what's going to happen next, and I've got progress and things to improve upon. And so having autonomy in my back pocket, so to speak, where I can dip in at any moment, for 24 weeks out of the year, I can get on a call with Richard, pick his brains and bring a problem to him that I need some help and support with. It's just an incredible resource to have. And I've got that for the rest of my life. So it's a real kind of safety net in a sense, because no matter what goes on or what goes wrong in life, I know I've got this community where I can find help, support, resources, ideas, encouragement, whether that is emotional, whether it's professional. It's just a real peace of mind to know that I'm enrolled with such an excellent group of people working on creating ethical, morally kosher solutions in the world. That's what really appeals to me about autonomy as well. And I think to a lot of people is it's mixing in entrepreneurism and business with ethical behavior. And I think many of us, through our experiences and dealings with companies and businesses through our lives, we see that that is not the standard way, is not the standard modus operandi of a lot of companies and people out there doing business. So to know that you can come and drink from the well, as Richard likes to say, at any time and get be sort of set back on the right path. Maybe you stray off a little bit. Maybe you relapse into old habits, or maybe you give up on yourself for a while and you stop pursuing the thing that you're trying to get to, and you get distracted and you fall into a habit of playing video games or spending time on some other non-productive habit. Autonomy will be there ready for you when you're ready for it. And knowing that that is the case now for the rest of my life, and the door is always open. And not only that, but it's always getting better each season as well, because new things are added, the events are developed, new people come in with their ideas, new bonus, new things are added to the vault of content that you get upon graduation, the goodies that we talked about. So it just gets better and better each year. And when you enroll and you sign up, you got access to that for the rest of your life. Like it's incredible. It's such an incredible deal. And I'm so just glad to have that resource there, no matter what I'm facing personally or professionally. I've got a network to plug into to find what I need to move forward and overcome and make progress. So I can't really say much more than that. It's an incredible thing to have. And I'm sure I'll be participating and getting involved for many more years to come.
Well, Nick, thank you very, very much for being here. And I can say without a doubt that autonomy is very glad to have you as much as you're glad to be here. And, so for posterity's sake, anyone out there listening to this replay, go to getautonomy.info and don't hesitate to book that blueprint strategy call. For people that are live here in the room, that link is in the chat. Currently, we are looking at week we're looking at lecture number 2 happening tonight in just a short while, about a half an hour. And then throughout the week, we got a few events coming up. I believe tomorrow is when Do It Live finally makes its triumphant return. So that takes place every Saturday. And then we have tomorrow night, Doc's Marvelous, Mysterious, Magnificent Grab Bag. And then to round out the weekend, we have the Sunday Q&A with Richard. That happens every Sunday, same time at 12 noon to 2:30 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. And then throughout the week, various other events take place. The chat is pretty much always active. There's always something going on. And we have being rolled out the new Autonomy Primer, which replaces the old obstacle course. And a link for that in your will be in your account and emails. So check that out and enjoy that. It's at universityofreason.com/offers. We have the link in the chat here for everyone that's in the room. And then what do we have? We have 2 more autonomy quests coming up. So that's next Friday and the Friday after. And then I'm pretty sure that's it. So thank you all for being here tonight. And thank you for Leah for being my backup. Thank you for Carlos for being here. All the wonderful questions. Nick, special thank you to you. And we'll, unless I'm forgetting something, which I always feel like I am. But other than that, we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was an absolute pleasure to spend time with you today, and hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, James. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you,
Until
guys.
6 o'clock.
You guys are total rock stars. See you guys. Bye.
Yeah, amazing. Great job.